Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into episode 6 of the Big Friday Kickoff podcast. I'm Emily Cochran, the sports director here at Fox 10 in Mobile. This is Robert Ristaneo, my right-hand man, our digital producer. Robert, we are headed into the back half of the season, a lot of non-region games this week. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get right into some of the matchups from last week that we were so impressed by.
Yeah, we had a good week last week. I think we saw some of the region standings kind of start working themselves out a little bit. Some big matchups with some teams that all have some playoff hopes this season, obviously. And I think, we should probably start with our Big Friday Kickoff game, yeah?
Yeah, I think we had an absolute blast out in Mobile Christian.
Yeah,
the Jackson,
it's a good time.
Yeah, we absolutely did. The Jackson Aggies came to town, the reigning 4A state champions. And I think going into this one, we talked about it last week. We really thought that Jackson, from the jump, was going to just run away with this game. But I think that at halftime it was 14-7.
Yeah,
Jackson was up, but very close in the first half of that game.
Yeah, and I think it took until 5 minutes left in the second quarter for Jackson to even score. I think Mobile Christian was up 7-0 for most of that first half.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of an impressive game. It was one of those tough tests that I think Jackson probably needs a little bit more of, because they're so used to just running away with it against most teams, and I think games like this against a region opponent are helpful. We should say they ended up winning this one 42-14. It looked like a typical Jackson game, but for a half there, Mobile Christian really controlled things. Jason Todd had 30 carries in this game for 127 yards. We knew that they would want to run the ball, try and control the clock, keep it out of Landon Duckworth's hands. And E.J. Crowell went out for a little bit in this game.
Yeah, tweaked his ankle. Yeah. I think we were a little concerned when we saw that on Twitter that he was out because that is a massive weapon for them. Just an incredible running back, committed to Alabama. Week in and week out just puts on a show. And to not have him in the game, you're taking away a huge piece of what the Aggies do on offense. They run the ball so well because of him. And when he's not in, it just kind of changes what that offense looks like. Of course, Landon Duckworth, an absolute superstar at quarterback, but it just changes the dynamic of what they're working with.
Well, and we've talked about it a lot with Jackson. The focal point of that offense is E.J. Crowell. As great as Landon is and as well known as he is, he's our reigning player of the year. The offense runs through E.J. And even though he went out in this game, he still finished with 16 carries for 163 yards. So he still made his imprint in this game. I think probably the MVP for Jackson, the one that kind of kept them in this was Keegan Chapman. Had a big interception at the end of the first half that he returned for a touchdown. And then he also returned a kick for a touchdown also. So he was kind of the one that sparked the Jackson offense and kind of got them going, North Carolina commit. So, I think once they kind of took that lead going into half, I think they came out of the half and really looked like the Jackson that we know. But it never hurts to get tested a little bit, and I think that they definitely did against Mobile Christian.
Yeah, I think that Jackson. They were tested early in the season against Saraland. They got that win over Baker the week before they faced Mobile Christian.
Yep.
Their schedule has not been a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But when you're talking about region play, it doesn't matter what the final result was against Saraland. It doesn't matter what the final result was against Baker, whether or not or you win or lose those games. That does not dictate what you're going to do in the postseason. So if they had dropped this one to Mobile Christian, that says more about what your postseason is going to look like than these games against these higher opponents. So definitely good for them to come back and get that win, 42-14. And it looks like Jackson's just rolling right on.
Yeah, and I will say, with this game being close, I think it makes the St. Michael game a little more interesting. I've been skeptical about that matchup all year. I just think, Jackson proved that they were just a class above them last year, in their matchups. But, St. Michael keeps on rolling. They took care of Escambia County 56-14. They obviously had the tough game against W.S. Neal that we had talked about when it happened. I think W.S. Neal is right there with Mobile Christian as that third team in 4A Region 1. And so, I think the fact that St. Michael and Jackson obviously are going to be on a collision course with each other, I think seeing Jackson struggle a little bit with Mobile Christian and watching St. Michael kind of continue to roll over teams, I think that game's going to be a lot more interesting than I think I gave it credit for, at least.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This week, Jackson's going to be playing LaFleur in a non-region matchup, and then of course they do host St. Michael the week after that. It's probably going to be our game of the week that week. I mean, it's going to be a huge matchup. As far as looking at the region, Jackson's 4-1 on the season, 2-0 in the region. Mobile Christian's 2-1 in the region. And then St. Michael's 3-0 in the region, and then you've got W.S. Neal down there that's 1-1.
Mm-hmm.
So those are going to be kind of all the teams you need to keep an eye on as far as who gets that number 4 spot going into the postseason. I think that's going to be kind of a toss up.
Yeah, no doubt.
So definitely something to keep an eye on in 4A. So let's go ahead and talk about our game of the week. This one, I think, surprised us very, very much. But I think it just goes to prove how good Bayside Academy is. So this was Bayside Academy at Flomaton. We expected this to be a dogfight. We expected this one to be close. Flomaton is a very good team in 3A, but I think Bayside Academy is just leaps and bounds ahead of everyone else. And I mean, we got to talk about TR Miller too, because I think they're another team that's really good in 3A. Yeah. But I think we need to start looking at Bayside Academy the way that we've been looking at Jackson in regards to the separation in 4A, because we've always put Jackson right there at the top of 4A and everyone else was so much farther behind them. I think that you can kind of look at this Bayside Academy team kind of that same way. I think they're probably one of the very top teams in 3A, and everyone else is kind of so much farther behind, besides maybe like a TR Miller.
Yeah, their offense is humming right now. I mean, they look so good. I mean, Davis Barnett in this game, 80% completion for 353 yards and 5 touchdowns. You know, I mean, the traditional Bayside team of run the ball 30, 40 times. You know, they only ran it 17 times in this game. Still got 109 yards, which is good for over 6 yards a carry. So those are numbers that you like to see. They're just so much more balanced this year than they were last year in terms of being able to throw the ball and run the ball. And, you know, Flomaton, one of the best rushing teams in 3A, they completely shut that down. I mean, they 17 carries for 44 yards. You know, I mean, that is your defense being able to put in the work that and your offense really being able to run over teams. And, you know, Davis Barnett, he's second in 3A in passing right now. There's still so many matchups I would like to see. I can't wait to see this Bayside offense going up against this Cottage Hill offense, because I think they are right there with them. You know, Shamar Tootle, he had a big game this week against Excel. They beat them 54-0. He had 321 yards, 3 touchdowns, 68 rushing yards. The Cottage Hill Warriors ran it for 9 yards a carry. Tootle is 6th in passing, Barnett 2nd. These quarterbacks are playing at a really, really high level right now, and I think, you know, TR Miller is obviously ranked higher than Cottage Hill. All 3 of them are in the top 10, but I think that Cottage Hill offense is right there with Bayside's. So I can't wait to see that matchup. But yeah, as far as our game of the week goes, it wasn't the closest game that we would like it to be, but I liked the pick of going out to Flomaton and seeing the Hurricanes, you know.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of people kind of question like why we made that our game of the week. There's still going to be a team that's going to compete for a playoff spot and probably will go into the postseason. I could see them still doing well in the postseason. It's just 3A this season kind of just looks so much different than it has in years past, because you got Bayside, Cottage Hill, TR Miller, and Flomaton all kind of right there, neck and neck, and doing so well. I'm thinking because of this game, I could see Flomaton actually being in that number 4 spot coming into the postseason. I mean, it's still, we're only in week 6. It's too early. And then this week is obviously non-region play. So this week doesn't really count. Like once we get to next week and you continue through the rest of the regular season, we're going to have a better idea in the later weeks of the regular season. One thing I do want to mention, going back to Bayside Academy, talking about Davis Barnett, he is a sophomore, only a sophomore, transferred in from Gulf Shores, correct?
Right, yep.
And has just kind of taken over this offense, and he was our player of the week this week because of his performance. And going out and seeing him, it's the first time I've gotten to speak with him in person, because we went out there Tuesday to present the award. And he's just so quiet and cool, calm, and collected, and not your typical, like, the quarterback is typically the guy that's like loud and out there. Sure. Not that he's probably not on the field. I can't say that because I haven't seen him play in person, but just going and talking to him on Tuesday and interviewing him, he's just he gives me like Joe Burrow vibes.
Oh, sure.
In the way that he's just it seems nothing phases him. Just like the way he spoke in the interview, he's just very just calm and chill, laid back. Not to say that he doesn't care. That's not the point I want to make here. Just the fact that he's so just level-headed. Doesn't seem like the kind of guy that gets rattled by anything. Doesn't let the moment get too big. I think that's something you really need at a leadership position is someone that's calm, and I think that he's really stepped into this role. He's embraced this offense, learned this offense. When I talked to his head coach, Barrett Trotter, I mean, he had nothing but good things to say about Davis Barnett and the transformation that him joining the team has been on his offense. So I think the Bayside's going to keep on rolling this season. They are on a bye week this week. Yeah. So while other teams are in these, we're in this weird week in the in-between where it's all these non-region matchups, they're going to have a bye, get a little bit of a break. And then I'm trying to see who they play the week after that, after the bye. Hillcrest Evergreen, which is going to be another important region matchup there on October 3rd. Isn't that crazy? Like after the bye week, like we head into October.
I know, right?
I feel like we just started the season and we're already headed into the back half.
By,
it really is. It really. I feel like this season more than any other season before, because we really are having such a good time.
I know, right? Yeah.
And I feel like in the past, when it came to teams, besides maybe 6A, it's been there were just two teams that were in the top, or maybe one specific team that stood out. And I feel like across all classifications this year, we just have so much talent in those, top four teams that you could see go to the postseason. And I think 3A is just a great example of that. So that was our game of the week. Another huge game that easily could have been Big Friday Kickoff, easily could have been game of the week. This was a 7A matchup between Daphne and Baker out in West Mobile. Hustlin' House Sherrick just did a great job with this one. This was a heck of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this was one where, Daphne, they kind of came back on them. Baker was kind of in control in this game. And, Christian Seeger, I mean, he's having just a killer year at quarterback for Daphne after coming over from Spanish Fort. He had nearly 200 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns. Tate Graham, he had 3 picks in this game. This was an interesting one because Baker kind of did what they wanted to do. They ran the ball 44 times, 263 yards, 6 yards a carry. Daphne, 167 yards on the ground, 6.5 yards a carry. But to me, it was the quarterback play that really separated them. And Christian Seeger, I mean, can't say it enough. He's been the reason that this Daphne team looks so good. He's really fit in well with the Trojans. And yeah, it's they've played the hardest 2 teams in 7A. And they split those games. Baker still has to play MGM, which is a game that, we'll definitely be watching. But, yeah, the Trojans look like the real deal,
I 100% agree. They're going to be going up against Spanish Fort this week, and we'll get a little bit more into that one. But, I mean, the back half of their season, they play Davidson at Davidson. They host Alma Bryant. They play Fairhope at Fairhope, Robertsdale at Robertsdale, and then they have an open week the last week of the regular season.
Yep.
I mean, they're 4-1 right now, and if you look at other teams across the region, Baker's 3-2, 2-1 in the region. So Daphne and Baker are both 2-1 in the region right now, but obviously Daphne's above Baker because they got that win over them this past week. Fairhope is 3-0, undefeated in the region. Mary G. Montgomery is 3-0, undefeated in the region. And then everyone else kind of just falls under that. So definitely going to be maybe some chaos
a little bit
in the back half of the season.
Yeah.
The thing with Daphne is they do have that loss to Mary Montgomery. So, I mean, MGM's probably going to sit in that number 1 spot. Daphne potentially, based on this week, we could probably go ahead and say that Daphne's going to be that number 2 team, depending on if they win out the rest of the season.
Yeah, having that tiebreaker over Baker, that's the big thing. And, I think your top 3 in 7A are MGM, Daphne, Baker. Those are the top 3. And then
it's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes that number 4 spot because Fairhope is undefeated in the region right now, but they haven't played the 3 toughest teams.
Right, and they end with them.
Exactly. So we'll get into more on 7A in just a bit, but let's first take a look back at St. Paul's at Theodore this past week. This is another game that easily could have been our game of the week, Big Friday Kickoff. It's just like, it's so hard every week because we have these 4 or 5 really big games, and we have to organize and figure out who's going to go where. I actually went out and shot this game. And let me tell you,
this ended up being a great one.
I have never run up and down the sideline so much in my entire life. I mean, because kickoff returns for touchdowns, punt returns for touchdowns, turnovers. Like, I'm literally sprinting up and down the sideline back and forth. I got my exercise. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I came back that night, but it was just such a good game. I mean, St. Paul's was up at halftime. I want to say it was 34-27. I could be wrong.
I think it was 34-21, I think.
Okay, when I left. That's the thing. It was so chaotic. I really couldn't.
Right, yeah.
It was also C.J. Mosley night. Like,
Sure.
He got to be an honorary captain. He's on the sideline. Spiro was out there. I mean, this was like all eyes were on this game. This was a huge 6A matchup. And I thought St. Paul's would probably run away with this one, especially because of how much of a lead they had early on. I mean, for Theodore to come back and win in those final seconds, I think the final in this one was 42-41. That is insane.
Well, and especially the way Theodore plays, where they like to run the ball. You know, those teams, when your primary option is the ground game, it's hard to come back in games when you get down like that. Mm-hmm. And it's also hard to compete with a team that's putting up 41 points. You know what I mean? So, like, the fact that Theodore's offense has been able to put up as many points as they have this year with the style that they play in, sitting here looking at them now, they are in 6A. They're averaging about 33, almost 34 points a game. And, you know, this St. Paul's team, like, they played their best game. I mean, Hayden Fincher, 237 yards, 60% completion, 4 touchdowns. Anthony Frazier had over 100 yards on the ground. As a team, they ran for 7.5 yards a carry. Tank had a big game. Carson Stevens, one of the best tight ends in 6A, had 4 catches, 3 touchdowns. Like, it was really like, it felt like all the stars were out. You know, Ken Abel had over 200 yards on the ground, which, I mean, he's unbelievable.
He's literally one of the best in the state right now, and Steve Mask has said it on more than one occasion. Like, he has really just had a breakout season. Mm-hmm. He was our player of the week, I think, week 2 maybe, because him and Juju Bonner were kind of back to back, the Spanish Fort running back. And Kendrick has just done so well, and he did it again. I mean, every time you get the ball in his hands, like, he's making a play.
Right.
And he's also just such a good kid. So it's like fun to watch him like have success and be successful. But yeah, the same thing can be said for the guys on the St. Paul's side. I mean, Tank, it just put on a show. And when you have all these guys putting on a show when they step on the field, and you got so much talent on the field. This one was a bit of a track race, and I think we kind of anticipated that it would be.
Yeah, so, you know, let's do our usual 6A look-in that it seems like we talk about 6A every single week. This puts Theodore tied with Saraland in region wins at 4-0.
Yep.
St. Paul's and Gulf Shores, who Gulf Shores beat Blunt 28-0 this week, are sitting there at 2-2, and then you got 2-1. I'm sorry,
yeah.
And then you got Spanish Fort sitting there at 2-2. I had 2 thoughts thinking about this last night.
There's going to be more tiebreaker chaos this season. It seems
there absolutely will be, and I think Spanish Fort is not going to make the playoffs. But I'm starting to think. I really am. I'm starting to think where, like, it may just be Saraland fatigue, where it's like we just almost take for granted how good they are, because I feel like all year we've been like, oh, Theodore is this, you know, sneaky team in 6A, and oh, so, you know, St. Paul's, they've got all this talent, you know, their experience, yada, yada, yada. Saraland just keeps rolling over teams, and I feel like we don't talk about them enough this year. But
well, we haven't in the past. Well, we talked about them so much early in the season.
Yes,
and so we've been giving them so much love early in the season that we've kind of, you know, had to spread it around a little bit. I think Saraland is off this week. They have an open week, and then they are going to be playing Baldwin County at Baldwin County. Then they face St. Paul's, which is going to be an interesting game. And then they will meet Theodore on October 24th.
But just looking at Saraland, I mean, they beat McGill, who has playoff hopes this year. Jamison Roberts was 18 for 20 for 189 yards and 3 touchdowns. Had over 100 yards rushing for 3 touchdowns. I mean, they are just, you kind of thought with Sante McWilliams and C.D. Gill and K.J. Lacey and these guys finally graduating, there were some real question marks with the Saraland offense and how dominant were they still going to be with all these new guys and all this. They're not like the number one scoring team in 6A like they've traditionally been, but they're still putting up over 40 points a game. And to me, their defense, I mean, they're only giving up 7.5 points a game right now. I think their defense has been kind of the unsung part of this team, because you always talk about the Saraland star power on offense, but this defense is really shutting teams down right now. And so, it's funny. I wanted to mention them because I feel like we beat around them a lot, talking about some of the other teams in this region, but I mean, they're absolutely smoking teams right now.
I mean, I think they're just it's
what we've come to expect.
We always put them in at that number one spot. Right. I think I say it every week. I say it when I talk to you in this podcast. I say it when I do my previews with Joe. I say it when we're on Big Friday Kickoff. Saraland is just that assumed number one spot in 6A. So I mean, enough said. When you're number one, you're number one. I mean, numbers don't lie. So I do think that a game that I'm circling on my schedule that I maybe wouldn't have circled before is going to be that Gulf Shores St. Paul's game on October 3rd at St. Paul's. I think that's definitely going to have to be a one to keep an eye on, because Gulf Shores is sitting at 2-1, and if you look at the rest of their season, I think they have an open week this week. Then they play St. Paul's. Then they play Spanish Fort, a Spanish Fort team that is not looking too great right now.
That'll be for the 4th seed, assuming they lose to St. Paul's.
Exactly. So let's say they lose to St. Paul's. They beat Spanish Fort. They probably lose to Theodore. If they beat Baldwin County, beat Murphy, they probably have that number 4 spot. So
absolutely.
That's definitely, that St. Paul's Gulf Shores game is going to be one that I'm going to be paying more attention to.
No doubt.
Compared to what I would have said a couple weeks ago. So definitely interesting, a great game. I had a blast out there. I love to go out and shoot a game. Yeah. I love to be out there and be in the action. It was a great time. It stresses me out when I'm, running back to the station trying to get everything edited in and get in for the show, but totally worth it. I mean, that was just a great, great game.
So real quick before we move on, I didn't run this by you. I wanted to ask you this. Let's do a little game here now that we're halfway through the year. All right.
Okay.
Realistic teams with a realistic chance at winning state in their classification. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll just go by the most recent Sports Writers top 10 here. MGM is the 4th ranked team and Daphne's the 9th ranked team. Any shot those two are winning 7A?
I don't know. That's a tough one. 7A is just so hard because
I know.
You've got Thompson, you've got Hoover, you got Central Phoenix City. It's just so hard for any team from 7A to get far enough, number one, and then go head to head with them and take a state title from those guys up north. If there's any team that has the most potential to do it, I don't know if I could pick, before I would have said MGM. But now looking at what Daphne just did to Baker, I'm going to have to see how MGM plays Baker to have a better idea. But, Daphne's the number 9.
We've also seen those two play already, MGM and Daphne.
I know that. But that's earlier in the season. You know what I mean? You get a quarterback more comfortable, a guy that transferred in and has been learning this offense. You get Christian Seeger more comfortable, and then you see what he does to Baker. Baker, who has a very, very good offense under Tate Graham. So, as the season goes on, you got to kind of look at, how these teams develop over the season. Because it's easy to talk about how they look early on. I mean, that Daphne MGM game was just early in the season. What was that, week 3?
I thought, yeah, that sounds right.
I can tell you over here on the little iPad. Yep, that was week 3.
Week 3, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, up until that point, Daphne had played McGill, Tulane, and Pine Forest, and then played MGM. That's their only loss on the season. I mean, the final score there was 41-31. Very close.
Yeah.
So I think that MGM and Daphne are a lot closer in talent than I've kind of given them credit for. And I feel like maybe Daphne has been tested a little more. I mean, MGM opened their season with pace. They played Gulf Shores, they played Daphne, and then it's been Robertsdale, Foley, and then this week they play Baldwin County. Then they play Alma Bryant, Fairhope, and then they have that Baker game that we're all going to be keeping an eye on October 17th. I just feel like maybe Daphne has been a little more battle-tested. And I feel like now that Christian Seeger's really getting comfortable, I think also once we see how they play against Spanish Fort this week, because a rivalry game, no matter what, who's done what the week before, the year before, a rivalry game always gets chippy.
Yeah.
And crazy things happen. It happens at every level. So
I will say this. Both these teams obviously played Florida teams, with MGM playing Pace and Daphne playing Pine Forest. Just looking at it now, Pine Forest is 1-3. And Pace is 3-1.
Okay, fair enough.
Since the MGM game, they've won 41-20, 59-6, 35-0. And MGM beat them 34-21.
So just looking at that, you would say MGM.
Yeah, and that is not
by the numbers.
It just yes, very simple. I mean, we don't know very much about either of those teams, so we can't really speak on them. But just to get an idea of how those two team seasons have gone since playing MGM and Daphne, that's what it's looked like.
No, I get that. Fair enough.
In 6A, Saraland is ranked 2nd, and Theodore received some votes this week. Saraland absolutely can win 6A.
100%. I want to see Saraland and Theodore.
I do too.
I want to see it. I'm excited to see it.
Because I think Saraland's going to be, I think Theodore is really dangerous in 6A.
Just watching, to me, the resilience it took to come back when you're down like that against a very good St. Paul's team, because it's really, at the end of the day, it is not about how you start, it's about how you finish.
Right.
And if you can play a complete football game, which we see a lot of times, these guys, they'll be up and then teams can come back and beat them. You have to play a complete football game, start to finish. I mean, it shows the conditioning that you did during the off season, your ability to, it's also a mental thing too, because a lot of teams, these kids get down and they shut down and they can't come back from it. Theodore does not do that.
Right.
So I cannot wait to see this Theodore Saraland game.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a good one. We definitely have to keep an eye on in 6A, but I still think Saraland probably wins the state title this year.
Fair enough. Looking at 5A, Vigor's 1, Williamson's 3.
I think Williamson...
Listen to these Williamson stats real quick. They lead 5A in scoring with 52.8 points per game. Their defense is also number 1. Guess how many points a game they're giving up?
How many?
3.5. They've given up 14 points all year.
What?
I think Williamson to me has looked more impressive than Vigor so far.
But hold on, I need to look up and see who Williamson has played so far, because that also can dictate. Oh, yeah, you're putting up a lot of points, but who are you putting up those points against?
Well, they destroyed Citronelle, and Citronelle took Vigor down to the wire this past week.
Okay, yes, I do. I do remember that. They've played Wayne County, Alberta, Citronelle, BC Rain, and then this week they're going to play Murphy, then Faith Academy. I think
their stats are going to be so gaudy after these next 2 weeks.
The game to circle for them is the UMS Wright game on the 10th. I think that's going to be a huge teller of where they
go
really
UMS
look.
Vigor back to back.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I will say Williamson, I think, Vigor was the number 1 team in 5A last week going into that one.
Yeah.
But I could see Williamson being that number 1 team in 5A. The way that they're looking so far.
They're going to have to, it'll obviously have to be after they beat Vigor or if Vigor loses before that game. But no, I agree. I think both those teams are right there, as far as being able to win the whole thing in 5A. 4A, Jackson, St. Michael are 1 and 2. I think we both think that
Jackson's winning the title in 4A.
Yeah, I think no.
St. Michael's going to give them a very hard time, but Jackson's winning the state title.
Now 3A is a little interesting because T.R. Miller is 3rd. Bayside and Cottage Hill are 9th and 10th. We actually have 3 3A teams in the top 10.
3A is going to be chaotic and crazy. It could be anyone's ball game in there between Cottage Hill, T.R. Miller, Bayside, and then even Flomaton.
Yeah, I think with the way Bayside's offense looks right now, I would put them as the best team in that region, even though T.R. Miller's ranked higher. But there's still a lot of football left in 3A. But I do think with how good those 3 teams have been, I think any of those 3 can make a run in the postseason.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. T.R. Miller's going to be taking on UMS Wright this week, and I think that's going to be a really good test, kind of a good gauge. Yeah. They got the win last year.
Right.
So, but we'll get into that more in just a second because that's our game of the week.
Right. 2A, we have no one ranked in the top 10. JU Blackshear and Washington County both received some votes. I don't think that we really have anyone in 2A this year that has a realistic shot at winning the whole thing.
No.
And then down in 1A, Leroy is 2nd. Southern Choctaw is ranked 10th. Millry received the 2nd most votes for the top 10. I'm a little surprised by that. I mean, Southern Choctaw was very good last year until they played Leroy, Millry, Sweetwater.
I think Leroy will probably win the state title in 1A this year.
They look really good. I mean,
they look so good.
They're beating teams that are ranked, that are a higher classification than them, it feels like, every week.
Who'd they beat in like week 2 or week 3? Was it Thomasville?
They beat Thomasville in week 1 and then Clark County. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're just, I mean, they look so good.
And not just beat them. I mean, I think they beat Thomasville like 52-14.
Beat the brakes off of them. I'm not just like by a touchdown or 2.
Right.
Like, they are running up the score on them. They're taking no prisoners.
No.
So, yeah, I could say Leroy's probably... I could say, we might have more... Because I'm trying to think what year it was that I was here that we had 4 local teams win. It was the year Saraland won, Mobile Christian, Leroy...
Gulf Shores.
And then Gulf Shores. Yeah. So, I mean, I could see us potentially having another one of those years.
It's looking like that right now.
I mean, I could see it.
Yeah.
I could definitely see it. So... That's very, look ahead, futuristic, way too early predictions.
Well, I mean, we got half a season sample size, so I think it's fair to start just sort of glancing at it.
No, I agree. Well, let's go ahead and get into this week a little more. We do have 2 Thursday night games kicking off week 6. We've got MGM at Baldwin County and then Washington County at Leroy. I think we kind of know what this MGM Baldwin County game is going to look like. Yeah. I'm going out there and shooting it, and then Dacian's going to be doing the Washington County Leroy game. I know that Leroy is a lower classification than Washington County, but I think Leroy gets the win in that one. Wouldn't you say so?
I don't expect either of these games to be close, to be honest with you.
I don't either. I could see us getting all the highlights we need in, the first quarter.
Right.
And no offense to, the opposing teams. It's just... MGM is so good in 7A, and then Leroy's so good in 1A. I mean, it's just really, it's comparing apples to oranges.
Yeah, and, these 2 games are perfect examples of, something that I think is worth mentioning this week with so many non-region games. You may have some scores that are closer than you would think, because I think some teams are just going to come in, kind of run their basic stuff. If you're an MGM against a Baldwin County, you're really just trying to get out of there with a win and no injuries. So, Leroy and Washington County may be a little bit different, but, I mean, I don't expect Leroy or MGM to really struggle too much in either of these games. But, looking ahead to our Big Friday Kickoff game, which is Fairhope and Theodore, I think both these teams... Maybe Fairhope more so than Theodore. This is a good measuring stick game, because it's not going to have any implication on your playoff chances. But it's a good chance to see where you're at against teams that you're not usually playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Theodore is a team that would absolutely compete in our 7A region if they were in it. So
100%.
This is definitely not a team that you're so much bigger and stronger and faster than, So, yeah, I think that's a good segue to go ahead. Tell me a little bit about Fairhope Theodore while we're going there.
So the last time they played last year, Theodore won 15-7. So a bit of a weird score. I think that will probably look different this year. I think this year's Theodore team is just so different than last year's Theodore team. I think that Steve Mask was frustrated by what the Bobcats looked like last season. Whatever the issues were, they went into this offseason iron some things out. And just the only game that they've lost this season was their season opener to Baker. Fairhope, also the only game they've lost this season is their season opener to Spanish Fort. So both of these teams have not lost a game since the first week of the regular season.
Right.
They've won what, five straight now?
Four straight. Yeah.
I'm not good at math, clearly. But so yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting. I mean, it's a non-region game, so no postseason implications. I think this is the time to, if you want to try something, try it. You want to figure something out, figure it out this week.
Yep.
I think that teams like this that decide to put these non-region games at the midway point have a leg up against these teams that decide to take a bye week this week. I just think that it's, like you said, a great measuring stick to see going into the postseason. You've got two head coaches in Tim Carter and Steve Mask that have been doing this for a very long time. Tim Carter's been with Fairhope for 11 seasons. I think you said that he's, the third?
Yes, third.
Third longest tenured coach.
Yep, him and Mark at the same school. Yeah.
Yep. And so, I mean, Tim Carter, he's a great coach. I mean, when we talk about Fairhope, at least in the past, they're pretty much like quarterback when it comes to them. I mean, Exhibit A, you've got Riley Leonard, who moved on to play at Duke and then played at Notre Dame, and now he's in the NFL. I mean, you got guys like him. And then who did they have when I first got here?
Caden
Krill. Yeah, they had Caden Krill, who's now the quarterback at Jacksonville State. I mean, you typically have a lot of really good quarterbacks come out of Fairhope. And Tim Carter seems to be the quarterback whisperer. And, I mean, as we talked about earlier, they're undefeated going into to this week. And obviously they haven't played, like, the back half of their season. They haven't played Baker. They haven't played MGM. They haven't played Daphne. And that's going to – I mean, those are the tests in 7A. Those are the teams to beat. So, yeah, I think Fairhope, this is an interesting one. They're 12-10 against the Bobcats. Steve Mask headed into his third year with Theodore. And then we talked about him earlier, Kendrick Abel. I mean, in his last, I don't know, did we talk about his stats? How much he rushed for?
Over 200 yards.
200 yards, 24 carries. Scored on runs of 29, 7, and 3 to help the Bobcats get that comeback win over St. Paul's. So that's the thing. Theodore is coming off a win like that. I mean, you're carrying that momentum into this week. I want to say that Fairhope just played Robertsdale, and they beat them 47-9.
Yep.
I mean, when you have a cupcake game like that, I just think that if you're looking at the momentum side of things, I think that Theodore's the one coming in with more momentum after having a game that goes down to the wire like that against St. Paul's. So, that's definitely going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. Like I said, their Pirates' only loss was to Spanish Fort in their season opener. And then we talked about it. Theodore still has to play Gulf Shores and Saraland. And then, obviously, the Bobcats, they missed out on the postseason last year. But I really do believe, and I've said this and I'll say it again, I do think this Theodore team looks really, really good. And I think they're poised and ready to have a really great rest of the regular season and kind of cruise right into the playoffs. I think they'll probably go pretty deep in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, and one thing to mention that we talked about in our meeting a little bit earlier, this game was the exact same week last year, and coming into it, Theodore was 1-4, and this was kind of a win that sort of got them on track, like some of these non-region games can do. We got the complete opposite this year with, they're coming in 4-1. Fairhope's coming in 4-1. One guy just to kind of keep an eye on for Fairhope that I wanted to shout out, Brian Martin. He's kind of a punt returner, receiver, just kind of a do-it-all athlete for them. I think he's scored 3 different ways so far this year. They kind of used him for everything. Obviously, Trey Garner coming in for Jackson Robertson, who graduated last year. He's kind of that next quarterback in line that you were talking about with quarterback U. So there are some really good players in this game. I think there's a chance this game can be pretty high scoring. I think it's going to be exciting to see sort of that ground game of Theodore versus this kind of weird offense that Fairhope has. What I was telling you guys, almost a third of their touchdowns have come from defense or special teams. I mean, their offensive numbers aren't eye-popping when you look at them, but this is a team that's just kind of found ways to get scores when they need them. And, I think that's a good matchup for this Theodore team who's going to run the ball. They're going to be physical. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting matchup. And I think both these teams are going to want to win this game, even though non-region, obviously. But
I'm looking at this one as, we see how when Fairhope opened their season against Spanish Fort, they lost 27-7. And then Theodore played Spanish Fort and beat them 28-17.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at that as like, okay, Fairhope lost to Spanish Fort by this much, and then Theodore beat Spanish Fort by this much. Like, now they're Fairhope and Theodore meeting each other. Like, I kind of feel like Theodore could kind of run away with this one.
Right.
So I think it's going to be an interesting one. Fairhope's going to have a lot to handle with Theodore's run game.
Yeah, no
Definitely
doubt.
Kendrick Abel. If they find a way to stop him, they might be able to hold him off, but I haven't seen anyone do it very well.
Yeah.
So that'll definitely be a one to keep an eye on. We'll be out there starting at 3. Nicholas Herboso and I will have our first live shot at 3, 3:15, 4, 4:30, 5, 5:30. We're going to get to sit down with Kendrick Abel and JJ Bush, two of the top superstars on this Theodore Bobcats team. We're also going to get to sit down with Hall of Fame head coach Steve Mask. Like I said, headed into his 3rd season. He's got 4 state titles under his belt at St. Paul's, which is another team in 6A in our region. So, Steve Mask knows what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there's any time to be looking for another state title, I could definitely see it being this one, mainly because of the way he spoke at Mobile County Media Days. His final statement before he left left the podium, you could tell he was visibly emotional about this season and these days, and don't take anything for granted. And it just kind of gave us the idea that this could be his final season as a head coach, that he's looking into retirement. Because I think for guys like Steve Mask, the game has changed so much over the years. We just saw Terry Curtis retire because you're really having to compete with this high school transfer portal, and I do think that we're closer and closer to NIL. I don't care what anybody says.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is the thing. You're having to battle with this high school transfer portal, kids transferring to other schools within the region and outside the region, within the state. But then you're also having to fight against states that have NIL, and then you've got kids that are, sit on those borders that are going to transfer to Florida or Tennessee, or eventually Alabama's going to have to get with the program and just accepted that this is where we're at. And as you can see, the coaches that don't catch up with the program, they end up being left behind. And I hate to say that, but it really just is the era of football that we're in, and it all starts at the pro level, and it trickles down to college, and then it trickles down to high school.
That's right.
So I don't know. But my point being is, if this is Steve Mask's last season, you've got to believe that he's going in guns blazing every single game, region, non-region. So I could definitely see with the way they've progressed this season, and this being like that midway point, I could see him wanting to just run the score up on Fairhope. That's something I could see.
Oh yeah,
this
for
week.
sure.
So that's where we're going for Big Friday Kickoff. We always have a blast when we go out to Theodore. The cheerleaders are going to join us. I think the band is going to join us as well. So super excited about that. So let's go ahead and look ahead to our game of the week. We've talked a little bit about T.R. Miller, but this UMS Wright team is headed up to Bruton for a 5A, 3A matchup. This is a game last season that T.R. Miller got the win in for the first time in like the last, 9 appearances. And this was a very emotional game last season because of the first play of the game, everything that went down.
Sure.
So I just think that this one, again, could be another emotional game, but this season you got 2 first-year head coaches. You've got Sam Williams leading UMS Wright, his first season. We've talked about it before, taking over for Terry Curtis after Terry Curtis retired. And then on the flip side of that, you've got Ronnie Cottrell, who used to be the head coach at Mobile Christian for so many years. Yep. He's now the head coach at T.R. Miller since Brent Hubbard retired during the offseason. So this is going to be an interesting matchup for 2 first-year head coaches going head-to-head. And we talked about this earlier. T.R. Miller has just kind of been rolling this season. I think this is going to be probably their biggest test so far. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to stop that chaos on grass that we talk so much about when we talk about UMS, right? So, yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting one, and I'm excited for Dacian to go up there and get into this one.
Yeah, this one's all going to come down to the TR Miller defense versus, like you said, the chaos on grass UMS offense. TR Miller, they've got a top 10 defense in 3A this year. When you look at their offensive numbers, it's honestly, it's a little, I wouldn't say underwhelming, but it's a little confusing. Like they've got 4 guys that have over 20 carries on the ground, all over 100 yards rushing. They've got 2 quarterbacks. One of them's thrown for over 300 yards. The other's thrown for nearly 500. They're piecemealing this offense together in really interesting ways, but really holding teams to fairly low scores for the most part. I mean, I think the most they've given up is week 1 against Reeltown.
Yeah, 21 points.
Yeah, and,
all these games have been relatively, I think their closest game they probably had was this 2013 game against Strawn. But
yeah.
they put a beat down on Monroe County. That was 35-8. And then you saw their matchup with Flomaton. That one was 27-10. And then last week against Hillcrest Evergreen, they got that 35-20 win. So
yeah. And you look at this UMS team. They've got the 12th ranked offense in 5A right now. Max Fowler is a top 5 in passing yards in 5A. Just over 900 yards so far on the year. It's going to be that TR Miller versus defense versus this UMS offense, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see. I'm leaning pretty heavily towards UMS winning this game, but
I could see it.
Yeah,
I just think there's been such a transformation. Like these are just two, especially on the UMS side. Like it's just a completely different team than what TR Miller saw last year.
Yeah, and this is, I think this is one that. I think this is another one where UMS is going to learn a lot about themselves and see how good they are. And if you're UMS, you're 2-2. You had a really good game against Viger. You're coming off a bye week. I could see this team really wanting to get a big win and get back on track. So I think UMS is going to come in pretty hungry to win this game, just to feel good about themselves because. Following that, they go Citronelle, Williamson, and then they get Alberta Faith and end with St. Michael. So they've got a couple tough games coming up, and I think you would want to get a little momentum going before you hit that second half of the schedule where you got some pretty tough games.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is, just going to be a really good test midway through the season for both of them. But like you said, I could easily see UMS, that offense just kind of running away with it.
Yeah.
High tempo. TR Miller doesn't have Miles Johnson like they did last season to kind of put up the points on offense for them. And you mentioned Max Fowler. He's really just kind of settled in. Yeah. He's been taking care of business at quarterback. So, but I kind of mentioned this earlier. I think it is going to be an emotional game because we talked about this a second ago, but last year, he was a sophomore at the time, Kenneth Lett.
Mm-hmm.
First play of the game, he ended up getting injured, ended up breaking his neck.
Yep.
And that was just such a emotional piece of this game. And a year later, here we are now. UMS is going up to TR Miller. I think it could be an emotional meeting again, just because of what happened a year ago. Kenneth Lett seems to be doing good. The community really has just rallied around him.
Yeah, we've really kept up with him,
Yeah.
And his journey. So it's been great to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think this will be an emotional game. I don't know for sure. I would think that maybe TR Miller would be doing something, some form of recognition. I don't know that for sure. I haven't heard anything, but I could see that happening. I could see him being at the make
sure our Dacian Smith, I'm sure he'll be keeping an eye out for it,
Absolutely. I just felt like that needed to be mentioned because it was such a big thing that happened last season. I feel like you can't talk about this matchup without mentioning that for sure. So yeah, this is pretty much the biggest game of the week. That's why it's our Eastern Shore Toyota game of the week. Dacian has been on the road a lot recently. Yeah, going up to Flomaton last week, going up to Bruton this week. I think he's going to go up to Jackson next week. He's just been all over the road. So it's going to be a great matchup up in Bruton for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's move over to where our Hustlin' Hal is going. Tell them This is a little bit of a Baldwin County rivalry, right? Spanish Fort Daphne.
Yeah, I was trying to find today if they had like a name for it, and if they do, please let us know. But everything that we've been able to see, we haven't seen a name for it. Right. But to me, this is such a big rivalry. It's a 6A, 7A matchup, of course, but Spanish Fort and Daphne are not far from one another, no. and this is always like a big rivalry game every year. So I would like to think that it's probably called something, but I don't know what. So if you know, please let us know.
Right.
This is one. Obviously, the Toros hold an 11-2 advantage. They've won vast majority of these games. So Daphne's coming in. They're ready to break this cycle.
Yeah,
but this Daphne team looks better than they ever had, like, since I have been here anyway, because I'm gauging it off that and the amount of time I've been here.
Sure.
I'm going on year 4. This Daphne team looks so good. Spanish Fort did get the win a year ago, 21-7. Newton Garner had a 40-yard interception return with a minute and 11 seconds left. And this is one of those ones that always kind of comes down to the wire. And Daphne, I'm sure they're looking back at some of these thinking, man, we really could have had this, because in 2022 and 2023, Daphne led at halftime, and then Spanish Fort came back to beat them. I mean, the Toros, when they got the win in 2022 and 2023, it was 18-15 in 2022, and they were down 15-0 at the half. And then they win 35-27 in 2023 after trailing 27-7 at the half. So Daphne has not won in this game since 2020 when they beat them 21-7.
Right.
So, the Trojans have a chance to change that Friday night. I don't think they've ever had a better opportunity to do that than they do Friday night, just based on how Spanish Fort has looked this season and the way Daphne has looked this season. And especially with Daphne coming off that 34-20 win over Baker. That's a huge thing if you carry that momentum into this one. I've said it. I've probably said it a million times. Daphne just looks really, really good coming off their best win of the season. I think you mentioned this earlier, that they're number 9, according to the Alabama Sports Writers Association's top 10 rankings. Daphne's 4-1, 2-1 in region play. We've talked about this kid a lot, Scoot Miles.
Oh, yeah.
Heck of a name.
Yes.
I'm assuming that Scoot is a nickname.
Yeah, I believe so.
Got to be, but he's already caught 10 passes for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. Or in their most previous game, caught 10 passes for 77 yards, 2 touchdowns, and also scored on a 33-yard run in their win at Baker. So he absolutely stood out. Could have easily been a Player of the Week candidate. And with a name like Scoot, he's scooting.
Yeah, he is.
scooting up and down that field. Spanish Fort, on the other hand, definitely struggling a bit. They're 3-2 this season, 2-2 in the region. They're coming off that 41-0 win over Murphy on the road, which is just kind of one of those ones like you go in, you expect to win. Yep. It was 41-0 at halftime,
right? And
they finished 41-0. Yes, so that was just one of those kind of games that you get pretty much a freebie. One of the things I think we really have to talk about is the quarterbacks in this situation. Daphne's starter now, Christian Seeger, was the backup at Spanish Fort behind Aiden Schamberger last year. He transferred to Daphne during the offseason, has just taken over this Daphne's offense, and you talked about it. He's just looks incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And then another layer to this is the Toros' backup quarterback, J.J. Thibodeau, was the Trojan starter in this game last year. Yep. So there's just a little musical chairs of quarterback.
Right, no doubt.
That's an interesting storyline to definitely keep an eye on. Schamberger, obviously, we know he's committed to South Alabama. He's already thrown for over 500 yards and 5 touchdowns this year. He's rushed for 280 and 2 touchdowns. So he's going to be one that's going to be kind of hard to stop. But if anyone can do it, it's this Daphne defense led by Kenny King, who's, headed in. He's in his 10th year leading Daphne. Yep. I think that I've read one of, I don't know if I can say that, I've read one of Ben Thomas's articles about this game, and I saw where Kenny King said that this game has been like a thorn in their side.
Right.
And I think that is 100% true, and they are ready to get that thorn out this week.
Yeah, I don't, I guess crazier things have happened. I think Spanish Fort, I think this could get ugly for them. For Spanish Fort? Yeah, I do not buy the Spanish Fort team, and I think this Daphne team is legitimately really good. And like you said, Daphne's got all the motivation in this game to come in and really get a statement win against a team that's kind of owned them basically since this series has started.
11-2.
Yeah, I mean, that's owning. Like that's,
and also the whole like Daphne being 7A and Spanish Fort being 6A, and you're getting owned by a 6A.
And I think some of those years, maybe Daphne and Spanish Fort were in 6A, or Daphne was in 6A, Spanish Fort might have been in 5A.
You're right.
I don't know if they've always been 6A, 7A, but well, I know Daphne hasn't, but yeah, I don't see. I think this Spanish Fort team is vulnerable. I mean, they've got. I'm just looking at them now. The 25th ranked offense in 6A, the 20th ranked defense. I mean, just kind of middle of the road. And, Daphne, they got top 10 offense. I think the 13th ranked defense right now, as far as scoring goes. So I don't know. They're rolling. They're coming off a big win, and like Kenny King says, this game is a thorn in their side, and I think they've got all the motivation is on their side to go out and win this game. I mean, Spanish Fort would obviously like to get a win and get on track. I think
they need a win.
Yeah,
I think they're desperate for one.
They've basically alternated wins and losses all year. They haven't won 2 or lost 2 at any point this year. So I think they would like to try and get a little momentum, but I think this Daphne team has a lot of momentum right now, and I think all the motivation's on their side to take care of business, and I think they will. You
know what this kind of reminds me of? This reminds me of last week when we talked about the Auburn-Oklahoma game.
Oh, sure.
Because it's kind of the same thing, like quarterback stuff. Like you're a kid that wasn't starting.
Right.
And Christian Seeger wasn't starting. Obviously, Aiden Schamberger is the starter, and you go to a different school, and he has been taking care of business at Daphne. And you got to think these are kids. These are high school kids. Like, it's also they're competitors.
Absolutely.
And when you have that make myself laugh, that dog in you, and you want to compete, like, oh, I wasn't the starter here.
Yeah.
I'm the starter at Daphne. Watch what I can do. Like, you got to think that Christian Seeger is going to want to go out here and put on an absolute show.
I think so.
And that's just, there's emotion involved.
For sure.
No, it's a rivalry game.
Yep.
And you're coming in, taking over an offense you're taking over this team. When you played it, that's your former team you're going up against.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing with Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, going to Auburn, and obviously it didn't work out in Jackson Arnold's favor.
Right.
But I think that it could be different in this game.
Yeah.
And when we got to sit down with Kenny King when we were out at Jubilee Stadium for Big Friday Kickoff for Daphne's game with MGM, Kenny King and I talked about how important Seeger has been to the Trojans, the difference he's made. He's completing 64% of his passes, over 1,000 yards so far this season, 16 touchdowns.
Right.
He's just lighting it up. Then he's got 3 top receivers. He's got LeBraylon Williams, and then he's got Scoot Miles and C.J. Gardner. Yep. And they're all, from what this is me reading from Ben Thomas, what he got to sit down with Kenny King this week. Those guys, they've struggled with some injuries early on in the season, but they're all expected to play Friday night after not playing some in the early seasons, kind of battling some injuries. So if Christian Seeger has all those weapons in Scoot, Gardner, and Williams, I just think how can you be stopped?
Yeah.
When you've got all your weapons ready to play at your disposal.
Yep.
And I just think he's really gonna.
And their running game's been good. I think. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if this game's not very close. It probably will be. I'm probably being a little dramatic here, but I think Daphne. I think Daphne may run away with this one, to be honest with you.
I think the best chance that the Toros have to get some offense going is obviously going to be with Aiden Schamberger. And then we've got Justin Juju Bonner, who's one of our former Player of the Week recipients. Really good running back. This is his first year that they've put him, like he's taken majority of the carries at running back. And then you've got Damian Tate also. Bonner's leading that offense, almost 500 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, 62 carries. And then Tate is the team's leading receiver. He's got 17 receptions, almost 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. But like if you look at the numbers, it kind of is like you're comparing 2 just different offenses to me. And I think that Daphne's really going to just run away with this one. I don't want to speak too soon because there have been plenty of weeks that we've said, oh, well, this team's going to do this or this team's going to do this. And then because then we get a Bayside Flomaton game where Bayside beats them.
Yeah, that was was possibly a bad call. Mostly I'll take the blame for that one. That was one that I really pushed for us to go cover.
It's okay. It's okay. We love the Hurricanes.
We do.
No shade to the Hurricanes. I think that they've always...
I'm glad we went out there.
They've welcomed us with open arms. I'm trying to think when I went up there back during the summer. Like, there's a restaurant I went and ate at that I absolutely loved. So I have no bone to pick with Flomaton. You know what I'm saying? So, that's kind of a wrap on all our high school games this week. Before we get out of here, though, is there anything else you want to mention before we...
No, I just think I like these weeks because you get some unique matchups like UMS, TR Miller, you get the Spanish Fort Daphne, you get all these kind of unusual matchups you wouldn't see, but I'll be happy to move past this week and get back into region matchups. You know what I mean?
Yes, because it's just really hard. How many answers do you really get from a non-region matchup?
None.
I'm putting this mic through it tonight.
I'm
putting this mic through it tonight, y'all. I'm so sorry. Poor Mike. I apologize.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I just think that it's just... If it were me, and I'm not a coach, clearly, but, this is one of those weeks where, I want to keep my kids healthy.
Yeah.
I don't want any injuries. I don't want to do anything too crazy. I don't want to put my kids in a line of fire where they could get hurt.
Right.
And... maybe let some of these younger guys get some experience.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, but also you have, like I said, these are football players. These are football coaches.
Yep.
They've got that dog in them, that need to win and compete, that competitive drive. So, I don't know. We'll kind of see what happens. I'll be interested to see if, how long the starters stay in and how if some younger guys get some playing time to, kind of just, they don't get that much. So this is a perfect week to let that happen.
Yeah,
so
no doubt.
We'll kind of see. So, speaking of younger players getting some playing time.
Yeah, you wanted to shout out some college kids before we get out of here?
I did. I absolutely did. KJ Lacey, former Saraland quarterback, he got in for Texas over the weekend, went 1-1 passing.
There we go.
Perfect. For one. So, as we know, KJ was an absolute superstar down here.
Yep.
Played for Saraland, was their quarterback. Jamison Roberts has since taken over that quarterback, role for him. But super excited because Lacey's playing behind Arch Manning.
Oh yeah.
So
and look, there was a little while there where it was are they?
I'm just gonna say
are they gonna?
I kind of want to get into I want to get into this Arch conversation just a tad because. Obviously, I'm an Ole Miss person.
Sure.
And, the Manning name is well known in Oxford, and Arch decided to go to Texas, and blah, 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 whatever. He's not exactly just shined at Texas.
No.
At all.
No.
And this is, to me, I think about, winners and losers from the week. I think Arch is a loser this week. Not, just because they played Sam Houston.
Right.
Correct? He... rushes, scores for a touchdown, and stands over one of the Sam Houston defenders in the end zone, standing over him. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're playing against Sam Houston.
He's trying to get some confidence going. I mean, I get it.
But that's how you do it?
I mean,
dude.
Look, he's had a go of it. And a lot of it's not his fault. I mean, it's the Manning name.
I get it. A lot of pressure.
Yes.
I get it. But... he's also, I don't know. I've heard him say in press conferences before that, he's got so much to prove and this, that. But how much of that is, I have to say this because I have to say it?
Well, yeah, sure.
I don't, you know what I mean? Sometimes I just wonder. I question the authenticity. I question how genuine. I just don't, and I don't know him. I don't know him. I can only go based off what I see. And when I see you stand over a team that's basically a D2 team and you're standing in the end zone over him being a booty hole.
Yeah, I get it.
I just that. That's my bone to pick with Arch Manning. I hope that he. Well, no, I don't want to say that. Honestly, if he rides the bench and KJ Lacey gets to start and KJ Lacey gets to do his thing, I would love that because I would love to see a kid from down here that we've seen shine at the high school level playing for Texas. I'd love to see him continue to get in. And if Arch got benched and KJ got to start, that don't hurt me at all.
It'll be KJ's time soon enough.
I know, absolutely. And we know that he'll be successful. We've seen him here. I definitely know he can do it at the next level. So that was my little 2 cents about the whole
there you go.
Arch Manning debacle. Anyways, moving on. St. Paul's former defensive back, Chris Bracey, plays for Memphis. He's a redshirt sophomore. Last play against Arkansas, he had that punch out, and he forced a Razorbacks turnover, and he secured that win for Memphis.
It's a big win.
That is a huge win over an Arkansas team that played pretty well against Ole Miss the week before. You know what I mean?
Doubt.
So to help his team get that win, I mean, you love to see a guy from down here shine and on the biggest stage. So congratulations to him. He was named the American Conference's Defensive Player of the Week. So, yeah, shout out to Chris Bracey. You love to see it.
Yeah,
you love to see a local kid,
just,
get to shine. I watched the highlight. It was all over Twitter and Instagram and everything, and it was cool.
Yeah.
It was a really cool moment. So, shout out to him. Congratulations to him. Another Saraland player, Jamison Curtis, former Spartans linebacker. He plays at Vanderbilt. Another SEC team that's just kind of the way we used to talk about Vanderbilt is not the way we talk about Vanderbilt now.
No.
He was named SEC Freshman of the Week this week for his performance against Georgia Southern. He blocked a punt, ran it back for a touchdown.
Nice
scoop and score.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Jamison Curtis. Just want to give these three local guys a shout out. We love to see them shine at the next level.
Yeah, it's always nice to see those guys. You know, we see Deontay Lawson a lot for Alabama.
For Alabama.
You know, I mean, there's so many of them from
Ryan
this area.
Williams.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, probably the biggest one, but
So it's just. That's like our favorite part, and that's the thing that I took for granted. Because when I first got this job, I've always been big on college football, and then when I got this job, the way that we cover high school football, the way that this area covers high school football, I think is so important.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more to what you see at the college level. There's so much more to the story.
Yep.
I mean, you get to see these kids develop from the time they're playing. Some of them play in Pee-wee football, and then they move on to play middle school, and then you see them in high school really develop, and then they start to get recruited, and we get to be along that journey during their recruitment process, and you get to see and be involved in so much more when you start, earlier in the process, and that's why and I think you too, we have just fallen in love with high school football.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so special, and it's still at that level where, and it is changing, because we've talked about transfer portal and NIL and all those things, but it is really one of those things where, loyalty and legacy and caring so much about, your team and who you play for, and it's not about the name on the back as much as it is about the name on the front. And,
right.
I've really grown to love the high school game so much, and so it's so cool to see our kids that we cover get to move on, and you get to see them shine in college, because you're like, oh my god, Ryan Williams was my first, one of my first Player of the Week recipients when I was still nervous and my mic was shaking in my hand when I'm out there presenting an award. And I don't know how much of that they know or how much they realize. So to get to see Ryan and what he's doing, KJ and what he's doing, guys like Chris Bracey and Jamison Curtis.
And we get more and more every year. This area is really full of talent, and it wouldn't be nearly as fun if we didn't have the talent down here that we do. You know, so
it's incredible. Not just that, to see the kids that move on and then go play in college and then go play in the NFL, and then the guys in the NFL that come back and give back.
Yeah.
It's just so cool to see it. And I think Mobile and the surrounding area is just one of those places that produces some of the top talent in the country. And so we are so lucky to get to cover this area. And it all starts with high school football. So that
was very poetic. Let's go ahead. On that note, I've got nothing else to say. That was beautiful.
I'm sorry. I really do. It's my true love.
Yeah.
It really is.
No, I know.
So, anyways, thanks so much for being with us here on episode 6 of the Big Friday Kickoff podcast. Week 6, a lot of good matchups coming up. Non-region week, but some rivalry games to keep an eye on. A lot of good stuff. Robert, it's been a blast here getting to do this with you.
Yeah.
We're halfway there.
We're halfway there.
And we're always living on a prayer, that's for sure.
100%.
A lot of prayers. Give me the whole book of prayers. But anyways, we appreciate y'all so much each and every week sticking here with us to do this podcast. It's been a blast.
Yeah.
So a lot of good stuff coming up this week. We will see you Thursday 2 games.
Yeah.
And Dacian Smith will have your preview during the 5, and then Thursday's just the beginning. Week 7, full slate of games. A lot of good stuff coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be good. So
All right.
Sign us out.
Thanks so much for being here with us. I'm Emily Cochran. He's Robert Ristaneo. We will see you tomorrow.